The afternoon held an unusual stillness, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. The quiet was broken only by the distant call of a hornbill and the faint whisper of leaves. Then, a low, uneven groan drifted across the clearing. A park ranger stopped mid-stride, his eyes narrowing as he pinpointed the source. There, partially concealed within a thicket of thorn brush and acacia, a lion lay motionless. A cruel metal snare was clamped tightly around the animal's paw. His golden fur was streaked with blood, matted and dark around the deep wound, and the slightest movement sent visible tremors of pain through his powerful body. The lion's amber eyes betrayed a complex storm of fear, anger, and a desperate, silent plea. He didn't thrash or fight. Instead, a soft, low growl resonated from his chest, a sound filled with more sorrow than menace. Moving with deliberate care, the ranger approached, avoiding any abrupt gestures. With each step, the scent of crushed grass and damp earth rose to meet him, mixing with the faint, metallic smell of blood. At every sound, the lion's ears twitched, his tail flicking anxiously and muscles coiling in readiness. He possessed the strength to attack or flee, yet he did neither. For the moment, he remained vulnerable and trapped. The ranger breathed a quiet promise, almost to himself, "Stay calm. I'm not going to hurt you." His voice was soft and gentle, carrying an intention the lion could perceive without feeling threatened. The great creature shifted his weight slightly, testing the trap's hold, and the faint scrape of metal on stone echoed in the surrounding quiet. Time itself seemed to pause in the forest. High above, sunlight filtered through the branches, casting dappled patterns that danced across the ranger's jacket and the lion's fur. A low hum of insects filled the underbrush. Even the breeze seemed to still, leaving only the palpable tension stretching between man and beast. Kneeling with care, the ranger examined the snare. Its jagged edges were cruelly twisted, designed to hold fast. The paw trapped within was swollen, the deep crimson wound suggesting hours, perhaps even days, of relentless struggle. Each careful observation was a silent calculation, a strategy for freeing the animal without triggering panic or aggression. The lion's breathing was shallow and uneven. With every exhale, a faint rumble vibrated from his chest, a sound of quiet endurance and deep discomfort. The ranger's hands hovered just above the ground. He waited, watched, and learned the subtle rhythm of the lion's body. Time stretched. Every heartbeat felt measured, the rustle of every leaf amplified. Then, the lion shifted subtly, granting a better view of the injured paw. Though pain flickered across his features, he offered no resistance. In that stillness, a fragile truce was formed, an unspoken understanding between human and predator. The ranger's gloved hand gently brushed the earth near the lion's face. Just a little longer. Almost there. The words were more than an attempt to soothe, they were a promise, a quiet acknowledgement of their shared goal. The moment hung in the air, delicate as a spider's web. Every muscle in the lion's body remained taut, ready to react, yet for now, he chose to stay. And in that suspended quiet, the forest stood witness, a creature of immense power and a man with a fragile heart, connected by the slenderest thread of trust. The lion's growls had subsided into low, cautious rumbles, yet the tension in the clearing remained a heavy presence. Kneeling a few meters away, the ranger assessed the injury and the trap with painstaking focus. He understood that a single sudden move could trigger pure instinct, a swipe of claws, a surge of fear, a powerful leap. Patience was his only viable path. From his pack, he retrieved a few essential tools, heavy-duty pliers, thick gloves, and a basic first aid kit. Every soft clink of metal against metal caused the lion's ears to flick, each movement a subtle signal of uncertainty and awareness. Lowering himself to the soft earth, the ranger moved with such slowness that the ground barely whispered beneath him. Small clouds of dust and crushed leaves rose, carrying the forest's earthy scent. The lion watched, his muscles coiled tight as ropes, yet he made no threatening move. His amber eyes tracked every careful motion, his tail gave an occasional flick, and his nostrils flared, drawing in the mingled scents of human and forest. The sunlight, filtering through the branches, caught every ripple of muscle beneath the golden fur, highlighting the veins in his paw, visible through blood-soaked, matted strands. "Easy, stay calm," the ranger murmured in a low, rhythmic voice, meant to become part of the forest's quiet rather than shatter it. The lion's head tilted slightly, a small sign of acknowledging the presence nearby. He made no effort to struggle or flee, yet every fiber of his being remained alert, wary, and calculating. Inch by painstaking inch, the ranger worked. Using the pliers, he began to loosen the twisted metal, mindful of every point of pressure and every subtle flinch from the lion. The injured paw, visibly swollen and red, was a testament to the animal's remarkable patience. He would occasionally shift his weight, a low growl vibrating in his chest, but he continued to allow the human to draw closer. All around them, the forest played its muted symphony. A hornbill called in the distance. The wind rustled dry leaves, and the soft drip of sap from a broken branch punctuated the quiet tension. The air was thick with the smell of blood, earth, and crushed vegetation. The very atmosphere seemed to pulse with a blend of cautious trust and lingering fear. At last, the trap loosened enough to release the paw. Taking a deep breath, the ranger moved in slowly to lift the iron jaws away. The lion froze, muscles rigid, but offered no resistance. As the metal fell to the ground with a dull thud, he gingerly flexed the injured paw, testing the pain. A soft whine escaped him, a sound of relief rather than complaint. Quickly, the ranger applied antiseptic to the raw, ragged wound. The lion dipped his head slightly, his eyes narrowing in a gentle acknowledgement of trust, accepting, for this fleeting moment, that he would not be harmed. A soft breeze swept through the clearing, carrying the faint perfume of damp earth and wildflowers. The lion remained still, breathing deeply, his muscles slowly relaxing as the ranger finished his work. The ranger whispered again, a quiet promise more than a command. "You're safe now." "Almost there." The lion's tail twitched and his ears shifted, but there was no tension left to snap, only the delicate, fragile relief of a life freed from a trap. For a heartbeat, predator and human existed in a quiet, suspended space, bound by the careful thread of patience, trust, and shared survival. On the forest floor, the empty trap lay abandoned, its jagged metal edges catching a faint glint from the late afternoon sun. The lion didn't immediately bolt. He remained still, muscles coiled, his gaze fixed on the ranger with a quiet intensity. His breaths were shallow and measured, the heavy rise and fall of his chest controlled but present. Though his paw throbbed softly, he seemed to understand that, for now, the danger had passed. The ranger exhaled slowly, lowering his hands to rest on the ground. He stayed silent, aware that any sudden noise could shatter the delicate bond forming between them. The forest itself appeared to hold its breath. Leaves rustled gently overhead. Birds called from the canopy, and the faint hum of insects filled the air. Yet nothing dared to intrude upon this suspended moment of connection. Then, almost imperceptibly, the lion leaned forward. His massive nose brushed against the ranger's gloved hand, a tentative but deliberate contact. The ranger froze, his heart hammering. This was no playful gesture, no imitation of human affection. It was a quiet acknowledgement, a raw, unspoken communication. Trust, it seemed, had been earned. The forest seemed to exhale with them, the tension dissolving into the golden light filtering through the trees. The lion flexed his paw cautiously, testing the ground, then shifted his weight, stretching the muscles in his back and shoulders. Each movement was careful and deliberate, as if he were relearning his own body after hours, or perhaps days, of immobilization. "You're free. Go on," the ranger whispered, his voice barely audible. The words were simple, almost unnecessary. Yet, they carried a quiet reverence for the creature before him. The lion paused, turning his head to briefly meet the ranger's gaze, his eyes reflecting both a deep primal intelligence and a flicker of awareness. For several long minutes, neither of them moved. The lion's chest rose and fell rhythmically, the only sound the soft rustle of leaves beneath his shifting paws. The ranger studied him closely, noting the subtle tremor of muscles, the careful, almost ceremonial way he tested his freedom. It was a moment suspended between awe and relief, where human and animal coexisted in a rare, perfect harmony. Finally, the lion began to move. There was no haste, no fear in his departure, only slow, deliberate steps that carried him toward the thicker brush at the forest's edge. Each step pressed into the damp earth, leaving impressions the ranger would remember long after the lion had vanished from sight. The golden sunlight highlighted the curve of his mane, the quiet dignity in each movement, and the subtle power of a creature reclaiming its autonomy. Before disappearing, the lion paused once more, turning his head back toward the ranger. It wasn't a farewell in any human sense, but a recognition, a silent promise that this fragile connection, born from patience and pain, would linger in the memory of them both. Then, with one final measured step, he melted into the shadowed underbrush, leaving only the soft imprint of his presence behind. For a long while, the ranger remained kneeling, breathing slowly, absorbing the profound weight of the encounter. Around him, the forest returned to its ordinary rhythm. Yet the memory of that moment, the tentative nudge, the quiet trust, would remain indelible, a reminder of the fragile bond between human and wild, of patience rewarded with the unspoken language of life itself. The ranger had just risen and begun to step back, ready to resume his patrol, when movement at the edge of the clearing caught his eye. The lion had returned. He walked slowly, deliberately, each step steady and careful. There was no urgency, no fear, only a quiet confidence tempered by a lingering weariness. Once more, his amber eyes met the ranger's, and for a heartbeat, the forest seemed to suspend itself again. The lion stopped just beyond arm's reach, not approaching immediately. His massive frame was relaxed, yet alert, muscles rippling beneath the golden fur, the scent of the forest and the faint tang of blood still clinging to him. The wind stirred, ruffling his mane and carrying the mingled smells of earth, pine, and distant water. The ranger remained still, his heart steady, aware that this return was a rare and delicate gesture. The lion lay down, his paws stretched out in front, his tail sweeping softly across the soil. He watched, eyes half-lidded but attentive. The tension of earlier moments had been replaced by a quiet curiosity. It was an invitation, subtle and unspoken, a chance for connection, not coercion. Kneeling again, the ranger kept his hands low and his voice soft. "It's okay. You're safe." No more words were necessary. The lion shifted slightly, pressing a paw into the ground near the ranger. Their proximity held no threat, only a fragile understanding born of mutual respect. All around them, the forest hummed with quiet life. A small bird flitted from branch to branch. Insects hummed, and the distant trickle of a stream added a gentle rhythm to the moment. The sun filtered through the canopy, casting dappled light that danced across fur and leaf alike. Every detail, the trembling of grass beneath a paw, the subtle rise and fall of a chest, the faint brush of air, spoke of a connection deeper than words. Minutes passed in silent communion. The ranger felt a profound weight settle in his chest, an awareness of the fragile line between human and wild, of trust earned and reciprocated. He extended a hand toward the lion, his palm resting lightly on the earth. The lion responded with the slightest touch of his nose, a quiet affirmation that this moment, delicate and fleeting, belonged to both of them. In that stillness, the forest itself seemed to exhale. The lion remained a sentinel of calm and quiet power, neither captive nor companion in the usual sense, but something in between, a witness to patience, to care, and to the unspoken bond that had been forged. Eventually, the lion rose again, stretching, shaking his mane, and testing the now freed paw. He glanced toward the ranger once more before beginning his slow, measured journey back into the denser undergrowth. Each step pressed into the soft soil, leaving faint prints that marked the space of their shared encounter. The ranger remained kneeling, absorbing the weight of the moment. The forest resumed its gentle rhythm around him, yet the presence of the lion lingered, invisible, but palpable. Trust, once earned, had created a quiet bridge between two worlds, human and wild, and the memory of that bond would remain long after the lion disappeared from view. The sun had begun its slow descent, painting the horizon with soft rose hues and molten gold that spread across the forest canopy. Shadows lengthened between the trunks of fig and acacia trees, brushing the undergrowth with gentle darkness. The lion, now freed from the cruel snare, stood tall, massive muscles rippling beneath his tawny fur. Yet he moved cautiously, testing each step with his recently healed paw. Every motion was deliberate, measured, as if he were reacquainting himself with the simple, unrestrained act of walking. The ranger remained motionless, watching the lion with quiet reverence. He could feel the weight of the day, the tension, the fear, the fragile trust, settle over him like a gentle cloak. The air was thick with the earthy scent of the forest floor, mingled with the faint, sweet aroma of wildflowers and the distant tang of a flowing stream. A soft breeze stirred, brushing through the lion's mane, lifting strands of fur that glimmered in the fading sunlight like threads of spun gold. For several moments, neither man nor beast moved. The forest around them seemed suspended, as if acknowledging the significance of the moment. Birds chirped softly, hidden in the branches above, while insects hummed in the underbrush. Every sound was muted, a quiet accompaniment to the silent communion unfolding in the clearing. The lion's amber eyes met the ranger's gaze, and in them, there was recognition, an understanding that transcended words. It was a glance that carried a lifetime of wild experience, of fear survived, of trust earned. The lion lifted his head and shook it slightly, a slow, fluid motion that sent ripples of power through his mane and shoulders. He sniffed the air, nostrils flaring, sensing the scents that told him the forest was once again his domain. Step by careful step, he began moving toward the denser undergrowth, his paws pressing into the soft soil and leaving impressions that would mark the moment long after he had vanished. Each step was confident yet graceful, a reminder of the quiet strength that comes from endurance and survival. The ranger whispered, almost to himself, "Go. You're free now." The words barely rose above the rustle of leaves, yet they carried the weight of respect and farewell. The lion paused briefly, turning his head to look back one final time. There was no human sentiment in his gaze, no gratitude, no affection, but something equally profound, a silent acknowledgement that their lives had intersected, that compassion had passed between them in a brief, perfect moment. Then, without haste, he disappeared into the shadowed forest beyond, leaving only the faint traces of his passing. The ranger remained kneeling, absorbing the quiet aftermath. The forest exhaled around him. The wind swept through the branches, carrying the earthy aroma of soil and vegetation. Distant birds resumed their songs, and the subtle hum of insects returned to the underbrush. The moment of connection lingered in the air, invisible yet palpable. Trust, once granted and reciprocated, had left a lasting imprint. Not on the lion, who returned to his world, but on the ranger, who would carry this memory forever. He rose slowly, brushing the dust from his clothes, and began walking back along the trail. Each step was weighted with reflection, the lessons of patience, courage, and empathy settling deep within him. The golden light faded to soft lavender, the forest transforming into quiet shadows that promised another day. The lion was gone. Yet the resonance of his presence, the silent strength, the cautious trust, the fleeting gesture of connection, remained. The ranger knew that this encounter would linger not just as a memory of rescue, but as a reminder of the delicate bond between human and wild, and the extraordinary moments that patience and compassion can bring to light.